Welcome to the Rocks Back Pages podcast. I'm Barney Hoskins, and I'm in our plush recording suite with my Rocks Back Pages co-founders, Mark Pringle.
Hi, Barney.
And Martin Collier.
Hi, Barney.
We're here to talk about all that's new in the world's largest archive of music journalism, and joining us on this Thursday morning is the one and only Robyn Hitchcock. Welcome, sir.
Hello, Barney.
Really, we should have had you on the show in about 5 weeks because you once wrote a song called August in Hammersmith. I think we missed a trick there.
Oh, my God, we're coming up on it again.
August in Hammersmith, you don't know who you're with.
But we are in late June, and we're thrilled to have you any time of the year.
Well, thank you.
Maybe let's start with the fact that you've recently moved back to London from Nashville. How does it feel to be home?
Well, I'm back here, I guess. Where are we? London.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of... Boy, you'd think it would be a simple question to answer.
I'm beginning to regret asking
I've spent so much time in the States because basically that's where my career has been based for the last 35 years. I feel more at home in Britain because it's where I come from. But that said, I've adapted to being in the States, and I've got an American persona. My voice doesn't change, but I whip out the old elevator and all that stuff. And I prefer saying things like restroom because it doesn't have the same overtones as toilet, loo or lavatory, which are immediately, put you somewhere on the class ladder. And I like being me over there because people just think I'm British rather than trying to figure out how I fit in. I think that applies to a lot of us because, this is a small and very hierarchical country. Mind you, America's a big and hierarchical country and it's becoming uninhabitable. So Nashville is really great for music. It's a very good place to go and cut albums, as the greater world discovered when Dylan started recording there in the late 60s. Yeah. So I, being a huge Dylan fan, I was thrilled to finally make my way and cut albums in Nashville, just like the greats had done. I really felt like, okay, I've got a proper job. This is real. So I really like being there professionally, but especially after like 6 months of lockdown, I was just pining for things like a dodgy British pub or just to be on the A45 outside Bedford, where I've never been there, but it's like.
But you were suddenly pining.
I was having
not for the fjords,
fake
but for
fake nostalgia.
A-road.
Yeah,
fake nostalgia.
I know Keith Richard drove his Bentley off the M1 near the A45 in 1977, and so I always thought that would be a place to visit. But I think that's lockdown. When we came back here, and then we were locked in wherever it was, like Hackney, Islington for 6 months. So it's just like changing the wallpaper.
Yes.
Instead of having this street corner in East Nashville, we just had a wet, damp street corner, but it was. You were allowed out, but that was about it. It was even more dismal. I don't know how your lockdowns were, but it's like sort of.
Mine was quite nice. I was in the country.
Were you
in Gloucestershire? Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Dursley, near Stroud.
Oh, okay. Did you do mushrooms?
Not then, no. Though, as regular listeners to the podcast know, I have become a recent adopter, readopter of psychedelics. So.
Oh. Have you got any mescaline?
Not on me.
I really
this really is not the point.
Sorry. People associate me erroneously with psychedelics. I took very little because I was very cautious. I could see what it had done to my heroes, people like Lennon and Barrett and even Dylan. And everybody, it was a Faustian pact. You had a couple of years of high-functioning third-eye activity, and then you were correspondingly burned out for the same time, or maybe forever. Yeah. So I was very, very cautious with psychedelics, and, compared to, say, someone like Julian Cope, I took virtually none. But I did have organic mescaline a couple of times, and I wouldn't say no to a taste if anyone comes up with it.
I'm sorry we didn't get any in. You just had to settle for coffee.
Anyone listening to podcasts,
Nayland is
just get in touch with Rock's Back Pages.
Robyn Hitchcock, care of.
Yes.
W wherever we are 6. Yeah, coffee's probably better this time of day. Yeah,
In a way, that's quite a useful cue just to talk about 60s. I was going to ask you, the first question I was going to ask you really was, were you slightly too young to take part in the 60s revolution? I know that a lot of your influences were like key acts of that decade, but how much did you feel like you actually sort of participated in the whole kind of hippie revelry of it?
Oh, I had my nose pressed up against the window, but I couldn't quite get in. If I'd been like 18 months older, I might have got into the UFO club. I might have seen Dylan Electric.
Right.
I was just, it was a
That's what I
classic
was
thing.
thinking.
I just missed it. So,
Terrible question. How old are you now?
I'm 70.
Right. Yeah. You're close.
Congratulations.
So I was 15 in 1968. The first sort of gig I went to was Traffic in Hyde Park.
Yeah.
Did you go to that one?
No, I went to the Soft Machine in '69 in Hyde Park. That was my first. We'll talk about that later.
But you went to the Isle of Wight.
And I was
69.
at the Isle of Wight in 69.
Wow. Yeah.
But it was like, as soon as I started going to gigs, I could feel that I'd really missed whatever it was had already bolted. There was just a lot of people with long hair playing guitar with things that you punch holes in paper with. But you could see the whole revolution was already marketed. You just grew your hair, got stoned and played music to people who did the same thing.
Yeah.
Didn't stop me wanting to grow my hair and get stoned and become utterly mediocre, which of course I did and then took ages to recover from. But I did. I missed it, Barney. But that's probably why I've been so fanatically 1967, because I didn't actually get to fry my brains and, hang out with Joe Boyd with that.
Yeah.
It's funny how quickly that gets commodified too, because if you look at like punk rock, if you look at pictures of the early days of punk rock, there aren't those things that you associate. There's no safety pins. There's no black bin light. I mean, actually, there's sweaters and cardigans. It's a kind of funny thing when it suddenly goes into something that everyone kind of adopts really quickly.
That's what, Captain Sensible said. He just said, to begin with, the idea was punk, that you just did it yourself. And then they very quickly began to market it. I don't know. What, were you around then, Barney? Were you not punk,
are we talking hippies
60s?
or punk?
Hippies. Were you?
I was definitely too young for that. I would say that my pop life started in 71 with hearing T-Rex for the first
Mark
time.
Bolan.
That was it for me. So, and then you kind of work backwards.
Yeah,
Wow.
I was 11 in '67, so starting secondary school in 1968 in Chelsea, Holland Park Comprehensive, and it was Kensington Market. It was all of that sort of stuff. It was the residue. It was the fag end of the hippie sort of period. And then when Sex Pistols played, Martin and I were at art school. Sex Pistols played in 1975. And Johnny Rotten was telling us we were all too old from the stage. And I was thinking he's absolutely right. Turned out he's a day older than me.
Wow. Well, he said the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
That's
He's good at the philosophy.
But that's interesting, because in a way, Barney, you're like one of the first generation that would worked its way back. Like for us lot, there wasn't really anything to work your way back to, except I suppose
sort of
rock
Eddie
and roll.
Cochran
There was I suppose. Yeah. But there was no sense of history, I suppose. And then about 5 years, early 70s, there was the beginning of, oh man, rock goes back, you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
It had long enough to have a past.
Yes.
You could kind of.
I was actually going to take you
investigate.
back 10 years, Robyn, to when you joined us for the sort of short-lived Rock's Back Pages album club, which was held in Notting Hill, and you came along. It was a absolutely fabulous evening, hosted by Mark Ellen, your friend, and Green Gartside and yourself came along to celebrate with Mark the incredible string band's album, Hangman's Beautiful Daughter. And so Mark asked you at one point how you came to discover the incredible string band, and this is what you.
What did I say?
This is sort of what you said, and it was. So you're going to have to listen to yourself now.
I don't think everybody liked it, particularly of my clan. Remember my sister laughing hysterically when she heard "Swift as the Wind," and no, I don't think. But but it was a sacrament. I mean, I quite literally cooked brown rice out in the water meadows, cross-legged, barefoot, in my red trousers and caftan. I cooked brown rice, listening to that thing.
That was with you.
Yeah, I think we quite literally cooked brown rice. It was, Levitation City. I mean, the point is that you just have to have something you believe in, and then it acts as a prism for your faith. That's why we're still here.
I once saw you sitting up a tree.
I love that little remark from Mark at the end.
Oh yeah, we did, because that was the time of album covers being set in trees. I mean, Humble Pie did it, the string band did it. The idea was, if you were going to make records, you probably had to sit in a tree. Think about it. It's the idea.
And then someone has to get the fire brigade to help you out of the tree.
We never got that high, as it were, high up. But it was, it's an idea that you want to market yourself in a way that's very sound. What am I going to be? Where will I be? How am I going to present? And I think that's the first thing that my friends and I did. But I'm the only one who went on to be a musician.
Right.
But anyone worth their salt at that point wanted to grow their hair, get stoned, make albums, play a guitar, and then sit in a tree. Then you went into the fog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you buy the underground press where you're an International Times man or an Oz man?
Jeez, yeah. I mean, my surviving stash of newspapers and things, I've got International Times going back to 1967.
Yeah.
And Oz, I've got the Blowing in the Mind, the Martin Sharp one.
Have these all come back to London from Nashville with you, or have they always been here in a lockup or something?
Some of them were in a lockup. Some of them went to Nashville with me. Some of them are still in Nashville. Some of them were about to fly to Nashville with our two cats about 6 weeks ago, when I suddenly got a message that I had to stay here for a variety of reasons, and suddenly I'm not moving back to Nashville, which I was 6 weeks ago. So it's all our goods and chattels are sort of frozen somewhere in a warehouse outside Heathrow, including my old International Times. No, the cat. No. I'm glad you asked that, Barney.
Yeah, I said it was awful. You're going to say the cats have been in transit for the last 6 weeks.
The cats are in a safe house near London Fields with two trusted operatives. It was quite a lot of stuff happened, and so I'm actually still here. So we were going to do a podcast, a phoner, but I'm actually here in person.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we first asked you, you were said, "Well, I will be in Nashville."
That's what I thought. Yeah.
You'd be talking about restrooms.
I'd be talking about restrooms. I'd have said, "Hey, Barney, I'm in a restroom.
I just need to use the restroom.
How's it going?
Where's the elevator to the restroom?
Where's the elevator? Yeah. Got any Rick Dankos?"
Just to be clear, the Incredible String Band. So when you were cooking brown rice, what age would you have been cooking it? When that album came out Hangman's came out in
68. Came out in April 68.
But so when you were cooking brown rice, was that when the album had just come out?
Yeah,
or was that a bit later?
I was old enough to have a brown rice license. And I was allowed to carry a saucepan by myself into the water meadows. But I don't know. I don't know why I did it, but I certainly did it, and I ate it with my eyes shut, listening to 3 Is a Green Crown, which is one of the longer tracks. You can just about boil the rice and eat it. No, it was like I said in that thing. It's a sacrament. I got a portable record player.
Yeah.
And I would take my sacred records, which you know, the first 3 string band albums, Highway 61, Blonde on Blonde, maybe a Roy Harper. And I'd just go up the hill and cross my legs and listen to this stuff, or I'd do it with my friends.
Yes.
We hadn't even managed to get hold of any dope at that point. I mean, this was completely
So your
sober.
tick list was slightly...
Oh, there were lots of things I was still
compromised.
living for. There were lots of ways of damaging myself I couldn't wait to do. But I was actually still pretty virginal in many senses. And my mind was probably at its most acute, as you are when, you know, you're just going over that border. You're physically an adult, but all your experiences have been as a child. And you're in a way, very gullible, but you're also very sharp. In some ways, your bullshit detector is you know, that's why teenagers are such a pain to deal with, because they're so smart. They haven't compromised themselves the way we have and gone, well, yeah. Can you get back to me on that, Roy? Thank you. I'm fond of this patch of skin on your mother's shoulder. You know, and you're just acute. I'm sorry, the coffee's kicking in here.
This is not the masculine.
You know, and that's not the masculine. But another reason why I've sort of clung so strongly to my 1967, 68 persona or how I felt about things, you know, and I still like the coloured shirts and I still listen to.
Were you playing
records.
guitar at this point?
I had a guitar, then I learned to tune it, but not until I got the Bob Dylan songbook sometime in the autumn of 1968 did I know how the chords worked.
Right.
But boy, Mr. Tambourine Man, 3 chords, I was away.
Yeah.
And, you know, Visions of Johanna, 3 chords, and I've been working on that, interpreting that song for 56 years. And, you know, I still play it in A, sometimes drop it to G. Mm-hmm. My wife Emma's done a brilliant version of it. She's Emma Swift. She has a record called Blonde on the Tracks, which she put out on our Tiny Ghost label. We finished it in lockdown, and neither of us knew how to overdub, so we got a 5-track machine, because I just married another sort of technophobe or whatever, you know. She's not a technophobe, but neither of us is any good at this stuff. Yeah. So we got it, and we just had to keep doing. We did 30 takes of I Contain Multitudes because we couldn't find a way of dropping in. So it was really good by the time it was and we sent it off to Pat Sansone from Wilco, who lives up the road, and he overdubbed it and it sounds professional. But the OG track is Em and me doing that. But she hasn't cut Visions of Johanna, but she does a dynamite version of it. And sorry, Dylan, big Alpha and Omega, you know.
I did just want to mention that the audio of that album Club Night is on Rock's Back Pages, and it is really worth listening to. Apart from anything else, you and Green actually sung about 3 or 4 tracks from Hangman's. Yeah.
Oh, God.
So that's on there.
Oh,
you're probably going to come after us for sort of, you know,
royalties
now,
I could send Robin Williamson after you, but I don't think I have any. But I don't know what
I should have kept quiet about that. Really.
It's all right.
Is he still a Scientologist?
No, they got rid of it ages ago.
That story about Joe Boyd taking him to New York and then finally they'd gone missing, and when he found them again, they'd all converted to Scientology.
Yeah,
those
were grabbed by stuff. So
they got grabbed by
not the children of God who had been.
No,
on Oxford
Jeremy
Street in the early 70s.
No, it was some Scientologists. Joe had a date, and so he followed his libido out of the cafe, and he left the string band. Some guy that they'd known, that Joe had known, rocked up, and he was much more together than he had been. And Joe went, "Oh, what's happened to you?" And he said, "You know, Scientology, man." Anyway, he got hold of Mike and Rose and Robin and Licorice, because they were the 4 of them at that time.
Yeah.
And by the time Joe got back, they'd been converted, which got them off drugs, you know. I mean, it meant their trajectory, instead of going, I mean, I can't imagine them on smack, but, you know, they were pot and acid people, and then they just went into whatever Scientology does.
They did play Woodstock, didn't they?
yes,
I'd suggest they stick with the pot and acid and steer clear of the Scientology. But
They'd have probably agreed with you by the end. But yeah, no, I'm in touch with them both. But yeah.
good. Should we move on to the Soft Boys? I mean, one of the interesting things about like early interviews with you guys is you're talking about like folk music. Even then, you're talking about Fairport Convention, the Albion Band, and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
and that's pretty sort of unusual for what, sort of 77, 78. And I suppose my question would be, you know, how sort of out of place did you feel? How out of sync did you feel with what was happening in music in terms of, you know, the early like fumblings of punk rock and so forth?
To begin with, I didn't feel that out of step because what I really liked was the fact that it was snappy. So, you know, punk groups were called They got back to, they weren't called Scudge and, you know, Free Doom and, you know, all that kind of stuff. They were called The Damned, The Clash, The Sex Pistols. So, you know, I liked that. I liked the fact that the songs were snappy.
Yes.
And the first thing I saw was the Vibrators, who weren't genuine punk, but they were still, you know, apparently, but they were still playing these fast songs and zipping around the stage at Dingwalls with skinny trousers, you know. And I think we saw The Damned, and I liked that element. But as soon as punk developed an orthodoxy, and unfortunately the press had a big part of that, the orthodoxy was nothing happened before 1976 except Iggy and the Stooges, the MC5, and the Velvet Underground.
Yeah.
And the only I was into the Velvet Underground, but not Iggy and the MC5. It was a bit too grungy for me. And then it all got rather Stalinist. And, you know, I know there was this, a lot of people, because there were a lot of people of my age, people like Andy Partridge and Glenn Tilbrook and Chris Difford and Elvis Costello, who were all basically second-generation Beatle kids. They managed to kind of slip past the new wave police better than we did. We didn't cut our hair and we had harmonies and we were a bit less savvy. Perhaps if we hadn't been in Cambridge, you know, we'd have thought, oh, better not. I remember playing in Manchester and someone said, well, it's all right, but they haven't had a harmony up here in 6 months. It's like, oops, sorry, mate. So, you know, we just did the wrong stuff at the right time. Again, as Captain Sensible, bless him, said. And then a few years later, it turned out that the punks had all been hippies, because, of course, they couldn't have been punks before they were punks.
Well, exactly.
So, you know, Sensible and co were, I mean, I don't think Sensible was ever a pothead, but he loved his psych, you know.
Johnny Rotten's interview on Capital Radio, where he started playing Van de Graaff Generator tunes and all that sort of stuff, was a huge...
Neil Young, no less.
Yeah.
When was that?
That was in 77. The response was appalled. You know, the punk orthodoxy.
How could you, John?
Absolutely horrified. McLaren was horrified. He said, how can you be playing his records?
It's everything we're against.
Message, was
it really wasn't on message.
Oh.
It was absolutely fantastic. And it was a direct point towards what he did with Public Image Limited later. You know, but you're absolutely right. I mean, and as I said, one day younger than Johnny Rotten, precisely that generation. And, you know, we had a 6-year hinterland listening to all this other stuff, whether it's Pink Floyd, the Grateful Dead, or whatever, you know.
The thing is that the Soft Boys were snappy, though. That's the point. Listen to I Want to Destroy You. I mean, the very title sounds like a punk song. Like a Stooges song.
Yeah, the Americans who didn't, you know, had a different perspective, thought we actually were punks.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's now a sort of posthumous punk hit. I love the way we've been edited in there. We're next to Sham 69 on one of those compilations. If the Sham Army had turned up at one of our gigs.
We were actually listening to a couple of tracks this morning, and actually what it reminded me of, people like Wire. It was actually
quite
almost post-punk in a way.
Punk, I think we opened for Wire once.
Right.
The Wire XTC Soft Boys television, you know, we fitted into that bit.
A touch of Gang of Four, and who's the great guitar player of Gang of Four?
Andy Gill.
Yes.
Andy Gill.
I mean, there's a touch of that. So
I mean, like Old Pervert, for example. One of your many fabulous titles, Old Pervert. Or is it Ugly Pervert?
No, Old Pervert. That's
Pervert
Kimberly's incredible guitar on that.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's great. It's really exciting.
Yeah, no, we were a great guitar band.
You were a great guitar
and we were a
band.
reasonable harmony band, but it's great that stuff has actually lasted, and we are. I can announce because it's going to take bloody ages for it to be. I'm not sure I should even go into this, but
It's too late now, Robyn.
Yes, there's actually this. Underwater Moonlight has been lovingly remastered from an original 1/4-inch master tape dated February 1981, around the time the Soft Boys dissolved, which my old manager and dear friend Richard Bishop sent to me, and Emma and I were sitting in the mastering suite in Nashville a few months ago, and there it is, sounding absolutely fantastic. We get to Old Pervert and it's going and it's not going thududududoomph, and I think, oh, well, why isn't it going bow down, and why aren't I saying skin it back? Because it's a different tape. Because it's a different tape because, bless him, our now deceased bass player Matthew Seligman preferred that, and he just stuck it on the master without telling us. And then he went and died, and so we're trying to track down this last thing, because we're still trying to make a ruddy digital-free analog, ye old time 180 guzum thing. And when we finally succeeded in doing that, then it'll come out.
Okay,
If any of us are still alive. So the Soft Boys is,
so somewhere in his personal effects, the late Seligman's personal effects, will be a 7-inch reel-to-reel of the one song.
Cut out.
Then he cut out.
I wish. I had 20... asking where my old underground magazines were, I had 27 boxes in storage for about 30 years. Just before we left our rented house, I got them all delivered. But I only found 26. That one of them was missing, and that was the one that had the other 1/4-inch masters of Underwater Moonlight. So I found two slightly mouldy reels of 1/4-inch 4-track. Now, this is riveting, isn't it, folks? And I've sent them off to Nashville to have the mould scraped away from them and to be baked. And it's just possible that that's the one.
But you don't know until that's done.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just...
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
How long is a remastered piece of string?
I'm just going to read from the first of the Soft Boys pieces that we're going to feature on the homepage, which is a live review of you guys at the Nashville, March 78. I'm guessing you played in February 1978. Reggae, bastard blues, straightforward rock, and even some folk stuff a la middle period Fairport Convention, all tied together by the strength of character shown not only by leader Robyn Hitchcock, but by the rest of the band, Kimberly Rue, Andy Metcalf, Maurice Windsor, and occasional harp player Jim Melton. The Soft Boys managed to tap so many rock influences and mould them into a style all their own, and the net result was little short of astounding. Astounding? Maybe that should read perplexing. They defied all normal descriptions. If you want categories, then, as somebody in the audience was heard to mutter, you might even call them psychedelic. Ugly Nora, I Want to See Your Jellies Roll, song title, revealed Robyn as a wordplay man in Beef-Heartian class, while his guitar duelling with the fresh-faced Mr. Rue was greatly reminiscent of the Jeff Sinclair Rycuda 66 Magic Band scaffolders. Admittedly, Hitchcock's delivery and attitude was a mite too intellectual at times, but that's Cambridge for you. I'll leave it there.
Too intellectual for the Nashville route.
It's a period with Chaz DeWally.
Chaz DeWally, who'd of course been at Cambridge.
Oh,
takes one to know.
I think that was pretty much it. I think the people we most upset as writers were the people who were most like us.
Right.
Yeah. That's always the way.
Self-loathing, man.
Yeah,
you know.
Yes.
I mean, we had a lot of profile for a bit, but we really hadn't. We were very eclectic, too eclectic. I think I was too heedless of marketing, and it wasn't until we became more limited. Andy Metcalf, who was very good at trying out anything, but wouldn't tether himself to one thing, went, and Matthew, who was a much more straight ahead player, came in, and then I just also wrote some much more straight ahead songs, and so we did Underwater Moonlight. But by that time, the eye of the business had moved on, and we were just a sort of marginal little freak show for proto psychedelics, which is no one was going to try and make us the the next Clash or something.
Sure.
But we did
Yes.
make it. We made it to America.
Yeah.
Well, which is where, America really embraced you and has always embraced you in a way that hasn't happened here. And when you were talking about harmonies, I was listening to I Want to Destroy You Again. The harmonies on the chorus of that are sort of very proto-R.E.M. to me after all these years. And it kind of makes sense.
Oh,
that
yeah.
they embraced the
I
soft
think we
boys.
just got there first.
Oh, definitely got there
But
first.
yeah, that was all done on. God, that was done on 4-track, quarter-inch. I mean, fantastic job Pat Collier did of bouncing all that stuff down. We just didn't kind of renounce things because they were unfashionable, and so and I don't think anyone in the Soft Boys was like into the MC5 or anything, The Velvet
Let
Underground,
alone Led Zeppelin.
and
There's
let
one
alone
there's
Led
one
Zeppelin.
interview where you say, I can unreservedly say I've never been influenced by Led Zeppelin. And we haven't mentioned Syd Barrett, who's obviously, a key influence on your vocal style. I think.
Syd Barrett.
Yes.
I mean, I think...
Talk about a little bit about Piper at the Gates of Dawn.
Oh, wow. I mean, that...
Cambridge, of course.
Cambridge, yeah, Syd Barrett was... So I just have to clear my throat to even think of it. Really. I think he was absolutely brilliant. I think as a guitarist, as a lyricist, as a melody writer, he had some unerring, childlike, direct genius that somebody like Roger Waters would never have.
Yeah.
I think we can all pretty much agree on that.
And I think somebody like Robyn Hitchcock doesn't have either, and I don't think David Bowie had it, but we were all me and Rog and Dave. Here, boys, let's have a whisper bar. No more for you, Rog, that's it. You're not there. Oh, Dave, you're looking skinny, go on, you have me crumbs, go on. But
I think there's a song kind of like building here.
Yeah, Roger, Dave,
Me and Rog and Dave. You can have that title.
Thank you. Thanks. But we were all people who were influenced by Syd Barrett's approach, and he obviously listened to the Beatles, and he listened to Dylan, and he listened to Bo Diddley and whatever. But he came out perfectly formed. In a way that very few people did. Even Bob Dylan sort of came out with a load of covers and was fairly derivative when he started. And the Beatles were all covers. And Bowie's early stuff wasn't that great, but Syd Barrett, just there it was, Arnold Lane. Oh my God. Yeah. And then within 6 months it was gone. And where did it go? Nobody knows.
Curious. We were talking to Richard Morton Jack about Nick Drake in the last podcast. And there's a curious parallel. These are people who came fully formed with their stuff, and there wasn't a lot of it to be had. It was a short creative life, effectively.
I think they were probably both quite fragile in different ways. Although I suspect Barrett was more of a hard nut. He did actually live quite a long time. He just sort of...
That's true.
I think of it as like Syd was a sort of flower that grew on the cactus that was Roger Barrett. And it flowered for about 2 years, and then it was gone.
Yeah.
And he became Roger again, and Roger didn't write songs. Roger was an art student.
Right.
Yeah. Did you ever see Syd on the streets of Cambridge? No, I just wondered.
I was looking for him the whole time.
Sure.
I mean, I pretty much by the mid-70s, late 70s, Barrett was a sub-personality, possibly more. I mean, I think I was probably more Syd Barrett than I was Robyn Hitchcock. I've always been happy, in some ways happy. I like channeling other people.
Yeah.
If I do a John Lennon song, I try and sing it like Lennon, just as if someone was playing an orchestral piece, they'd try and play it in a certain style, that whatever it said, I think that's part of the song. But I definitely had a long period being Syd Hitchcock, and I don't think I am so much now, but I don't know. It's all in there. It's in the DNA. So when I write songs now, I'll go, oh, blimey, that's a Syd line. It's like The Thing, John Carpenter. That where the being absorbs all these living creatures, and it becomes this sort of grotesque hybrid of sort of dogs and spacemen and icicles, and it staggers out, Or it's in one of the Quatermass stories as well. The thing inside that what had been a spaceship winds up in Westminster Cathedral. It's just absorbed all these cats and dogs and tendrils and. Yeah, that's me. That's you.
That's you.
That's me.
And that's Robyn, not even on masculine.
No, I am the great absorber. I think you are your nutrients to some extent.
Yeah, that's true.
But Barrett was definitely one of them, and I don't listen to much because I know it. I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah.
But I love it, and I love the solo albums, which a lot of people sort of think, well, this isn't as good as Piper, but there's something about the kind of decrepit openness of them. He's thinking directly onto the tape. It's like walking around in somebody's mind. You can feel the rhythm of somebody walking. It is obvious, may I say, oh baby, that it is found on another plane. Yes, I can creep into cupboards, sleep in the hall.
It is obvious, may I say, oh baby, that it is found on another plane. Yes, I can creep into cupboards, sleep in the hall.
I think, my God, he's just walking over the flat plains of Cambridge thinking this stuff, and somehow he's managed to write it down.
Right.
There's no sort of, well, I'm writing a song now, so I better put this in songese. I mean, what an incredible gift.
Yes.
Ectochrome plane, I see the flies. Of course. It's just like, fucking hell, I wish I'd said that.
Yeah. Talking of channeling people, you recorded a Dylan covers album.
Oh, yeah.
In 2002, Robyn Sings. It prompted us to dig out an interview with a very, very sort of forgotten figure, David Blue, who was a pal of Dylan's in Greenwich Village, right at the beginning. I mean, when Dylan first arrived there, he hooked up with people like David Blue. And there's a label called Hanky Panky, which has just reissued the very first David Blue album, which is 1966, on Elektra, and also put out these recordings that he made as there's this act called the American Patrol. And he says in this audio interview that it was going to come out, and then he heard Rubber Soul, and he just said, "Forget it."
So they found the recordings.
They found some recordings of the American Patrol. I've not heard them yet because I don't know when we're going to be able to hear them. But so, Mark, you've listened to the audio.
Yeah.
Just thought in the context of Dylan,
absolutely,
and the Village and all of that. We were just talking about.
He precisely. I mean, this is John Tobler interviewing him in 1973, when he still had a viable career. His recording career went down the tubes fairly rapidly after, and he died in '83, heart attack, running in Washington Square Park.
I know.
So he actually died where he sort of started in a way.
I mean, ironic that not many sort of rock legends die of
running,
jogging. No,
not in the early 70s.
I mean, one could say it's kind of fair enough. Anyway, so he talks about going to the Village. I mean, he apparently went to New York in 1959, but really it's kind of the early 60s. He talks about being encouraged by Dylan. Shall we listen to the first clip?
It's just a period, the time, Dylan just happened to be maybe the symbol of the time, or the spearhead, or whatever he was. I mean, my relationship with him in terms of writing, at one point, he encouraged me as a songwriter. He's the only person with any weight, because we were friends, right? At one point said, "That's a great song you wrote. Why don't you, here's a typewriter. Take these pills. Let's go up to the woods," in his own way, which made me much more interested in seeing it as something I was doing. Because when I got there, like, Dylan was already there. He'd been there about 5 months and was playing. People knew who he was. He had made a record for Columbia.
Right.
It came out, and it was out like my first, say, summer or winter on that scene, and nothing was happening particularly except there was, well thought of around the area, but no one had an inkling. It was a very folky scene and very
certainly.
Your slippers on the ground, often each step that she takes, East Indian sounds erupt from the miles she made.
Let's go to the woods, find a tree and climb it.
Yeah. It's fascinating listening to someone who really was there.
Yeah.
Talking quite vividly about what the scene was like.
And one of the few people actually with a good word to say about Bob at that time. Right. And I seem to remember David Blue being, a lot of people in the village at the time tipped him to be the one who would have the big career. The new Oldden. I don't know. I think he... I can't... I know I've heard the record, but I can't... It'll be interesting to listen again.
It's a curiosity. I mean, you know, he talks about... He changed his name from Cohen to Blue, so it's David Cohen. He signed to Elektra. Elektra were basically a folk sort of label, but with the Doors and Love on.
Yeah, and he had 3 tracks on this very, very interestingly titled album that you guys may have heard called Singer-Songwriter Project. 1965 comes out on Elektra. Wow. And that's
Danny
like
Cowell?
almost like, yes, I think so. And it's like the first, I don't know if it's the very first use of the term singer-songwriter, or as a result of that album, it became, you know, a very you know, well recognised term. But
who else is on that?
Danny Cowell. Yes, I can't remember.
Eric Anderson?
Maybe Eric Anderson. The 3 tracks that are on this Lost 1967 Elektra Recordings album that they're putting out.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Anyway, so his relationship with Elektra just lasts that one album. He signs to Reprise, talks about the Company Freaks, which is kind of, you know...
mentions Andy Wickham.
Exactly,
Reprise,
you know.
Yes.
All of that does the 23 Days in September album. Reverts to S. David Cohen, records an album in Nashville called Me, that John Tobler sort of slightly dismissive of. Well, you know, why did you need to go to Nashville to make a record? And then why, you know, only took you a week to do it. And he said, well, that's the whole point of Nashville. Exactly. I thought, and then, well, we'll listen to another clip in a second. I mean, he talks about and signed to Asylum. It's about Elliot Roberts, it's about David Geffen, all of that sort of stuff, and recording stories. Let's listen to this clip.
You got together with Geffen and Roberts anyway, and at this point Asylum was just about to start, and that seemed like a good place for you to be.
Only place. For me, Elliot was my manager, and partnered with David, and I wanted a record contract, and I was out looking for one myself, and Elliot came up with one, and I was going to talk to some other people, and I remember when Elliot came and said, I've got your contract with X company for this amount. And I said, great, because that's what I wanted. Terrific. I didn't particularly like that company. And that night he said, you can go on Asylum. And a lesser deal in terms of money. Money didn't matter, you know. It had nothing to do with money. All I had to do with my relationships with Elliot and David as people, you know, and their concept of what record company they were going to make, or what it is, you know. And that's why I went with them. I went with them because I believe in them.
Yeah, because you were about the first album to come out. Were you and Judy?
I was in the Judy Seals first 4. It was Judy, Jackson, Joni, and Judy Seals.
It wasn't easy when I think about it, living in the house of changing faces. I still have the time.
I think he's actually wrong about that, because I think one of the first 4 releases, as I recall it, was the mighty Jojo Gun, which was Asylum's sort of token like rock act.
You're right.
So I don't. Joni was not one of the first 4 releases. She definitely wasn't.
Well, I mean, you know, yes,
Jackson.
fine.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. I mean, he talks later on in an interview about his loyalty to David Geffen. I don't know how much that loyalty was tested later in his sort of his career. Talks about going to England and playing gigs with a very early version of Roxy music, playing sort of playing Hull with Roxy music.
Live in Hull, David Blue with Roxy music.
I mean, one that's worth pointing out is he's one of the guys who started in New York and went west. John Sebastian being the sort of the pioneer of that, wasn't he? He was one of the first of the New York Greenwich Village guys to go to Los Angeles and start working out of there. Stephen Stills, I think, was another one.
Yeah, all the folkies.
Some of them did, and in the process sort of stopped being folkies, became sort of singer-songwriters for labels like Asylum and so on and so forth. Talked about getting this band together, including his guitar player, a certain Don Felder, who was to go on to join the Eagles.
Yeah.
God, he was the nearly man, wasn't he? I mean, there's so many points that could have worked for him.
I know.
Very nearly man. I mean, and he is really most famous for writing Outlaw Man, which is on Desperado,
right?
You know, and I guess that probably made him a bit of money.
It certainly would have.
But have you ever listened to David Blue? Does the name mean anything to you, Robyn?
The name means what you've described. You know, that era.
Yeah.
And I knew he had a record on Elektra, but I didn't know anything else really about him.
Yeah, I mean, he's sort of passed me by, and I know a fair amount about that stuff. And he's this missing piece. I
don't think the music stands up terribly well.
No, that's probably the he did feature on the cover of the official release of the Basement tapes. So obviously was kind of still in Dylan's circle.
I forgot.
And he went on that tour, the Dylan's tour,
he did.
The
Rolling Thunder tour. He's on a short leg of that.
I think he was an important figure. I mean, I remember interviewing Elliot Roberts, and he said David Blue was very important to sort of Geffen Roberts and Asylum Records because he had this status from the
within
village. He was a continuum from like the folk era into this new West Coast singer-songwriter era. I mean, that was the best sense I could make of it, because when you compare David's records to, say, Judy Sills' masterpieces, you know, or early Jackson Browne. I mean, they're just kind of characterless compared to those.
Well, the last thing on this, which is absolutely marvellous, is they talk about David Bowie, and John Tobler's sort of slightly sneering, it's just glam, you know. David Blue says, no, he's going to find something else to be next time round. You know, he predicts David Bowie's reinvention of himself. And because I think he got how smart and interesting David Bowie was, you know. Well, Tobler's reaction is what a lot of people's reaction was. It's just kind of glam rock. And no, Blue sort of spots that David Bowie will have other stuff.
Yeah, well, so the interview that came out of the piece, I beg your pardon, that came out of that interview was published in Zigzag, I would say about 4 months after John interviewed Blue. And it's called Rambling On with David Blue. Zigzag at that point was sort of, you know, it was very, very West. I mean, you probably read Zigzag. It was very, very like smitten with West Coast music and anything vaguely glammy or, you know, pop glam was sort of slightly sneered at. And it was only after a while, it's like you couldn't really pretend that Bowie was just some sort of ephemeral glam phenomenon, you know.
And then Chris Needs comes along and they hand a magazine over to him and he kind of, it's punk.
Overnight. And Iggy's on the cover.
Iggy's on the
77.
No, it has to be said, I read about Iggy at 72 in Zigzag, or, you know, earlier than that. I mean, you know, there was an element of Zigzag which actually wasn't just so sort of brown rice.
No, I think that's probably true.
The thing is, the West Coast stuff was seen as grown-ups music. It was also Old Grey Whistle Test. It was Bob Harris. And glam was seen as kid stuff. It was pop, you know, so it's like, this is okay, but it's not serious.
It was a teenage rampage.
It was a teenage rampage, and it was...
well, that's what's funny about all those kids' TV programmes that Bolan was on. It's kind of...
and that's what I really love about David Blue, saying that actually Bow is interesting and that he will do other stuff, sort of stuff.
Well, he'd already been something else beforehand. By the time Bowie got to glam, he'd been a sort of Roy Harper figure and a British Bob Dylan and all sort. You know, he was clearly a mutating organism.
Anyway, it's actually a really interesting interview. I think. You know.
Just to bring it back to Dylan for a moment, I did love that bit about, you know, the encouragement that Dylan gave to David Blue. It was interesting to hear about. You know, here's a
he certainly didn't give it to
Phil.
Take these
pills. Let's go to the woods. I mean, that I was rather touching. I thought.
Yeah, I wonder if that's how it's done. Also, did Dylan carry a load of typewriters around with him? I mean, Don't Look Back, he's got one. You know,
one I've used earlier.
He wrote, exactly. I get the impression he actually wrote directly onto a typewriter.
Do you remember the hipster typewriter revival of about 8 years ago when
No.
so you'd be in Dalston, there'd be someone sort of like in a cafe
in a coffee shop.
with a typewriter.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was a
That's
real
absolutely
thing.
Brilliant. But you said somewhere that, you know, basically songwriting began for you with Visions of Johanna, which you've already mentioned in this episode. And I mean, just talk briefly about your. I mean, Martin knows a hell of a lot more about Bob Dylan than
any
I
of us
do.
do.
It's funny, I went to see Cat Power do the whole 66 tour at the Royal Albert Hall. It was brilliant, just did the set. And they sounded, I mean, it was incredible to hear, you know, start of the second half.
Thing, Robyn?
But Robyn had done this about 20 years previously.
I did it in 1996, but just at the borderline.
Right.
And I did the acoustic set, and then I did the electric set with a band called Homer backing me up, who had a fantastic lead guitarist called Andrew Claridge, who had the aggressive. He had the same aggression. He sounded just like Robertson did. So I just got those sort of metal, those phrases coming out.
Yeah, yeah.
And no, I did do it. That is actually, or a lot of that is on that Dylan one you mentioned of mine, Robyn Sings.
Yes.
But we only ever put that in mail order. It was never released or reviewed.
Right.
But I think one side of it is just that, me doing the 66, the electric 66.
Yeah, so there's
And
an
of course,
electric Visions of Johanna, and an acoustic one.
There
and an
is,
electric,
but I mean, I don't know if I've ever actually nailed a definitive Visions of Johanna. So I sometimes leave the third verse out, but but to me, you know, like
there are a lot of verses.
There are, you know, but you might, you know, it depends where you come in. I mean, I came in hearing folk songs and the Beatles and things, but what actually made me say this is what I want to do was deep saturation in Visions of Johanna on a daily basis. And so my idea of how a song, what a good song is based on that rather than I Was Born Under a Wandering Star or Hey Jude or you know, Panic in Detroit or whatever, which might be equally good songs, but that was the portal. So the idea of a song that it's got some profound lyrics, it's got some really inane lyrics, it's got some unfathomable ones, and it's both really funny and terribly sad at the same time. It's the emotions are just going in opposite directions. And if you can, that's what I constantly aim for and miss. But you know, I just think, well, okay, it gives me something to aim for. You know? But that's it. Yeah.
And these visions of Johanna that conquer my mind.
I went back and listened to your song Winchester, which is a brave admission of where you went to school in song form. Not many would have done that, but it's what a beautiful song it is. I just wanted to read out just a few lines from it.
Oh, well, actually, that is set in Winchester after I'd left the college. Bizarrely,
it's not so much about the school.
My parents moved there while I was at school, and then I was a sort of young raver there in like 72, 73, you know, going around in my star and stripe flares and my shoulder length hair and my £2 deals and my kind of utter aimlessness. And,
above all,
you know, I was just with a bunch of people who were all aimless and they were like a year or two younger than me, and they were happy to get stoned, and I realised that I was still doing it, but it was taking me absolutely nowhere. And then I sort of made a few lurches, moved over to Guinness, and the rest is history.
Our old producer Jamie Lane was a Wickhamist.
Yes.
My father was a Wickhamist. Mark Ellen was a Wickhamist. We should do a whole episode.
You need to do.
But I did just
Winchester.
Well, Neil, because Winchester produces what they call eminence grise, who are very influential and nobody's ever heard of them.
Unlike Old Etonians.
Old Etonians have got the spiel. They're also got the common touch. They're very good. Winchester.
Well, I know when Old Etonians have fucked the world, basically.
Exactly. Wickhamist haven't. But I did want just to read these few lines.
When did you write this song?
This
86.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous, and these lines really touch me. I remember more than I can tell from Winchester. Maybe there's no one there at all. Maybe there's no one left who cared. Maybe there's no one there but Paul, living in Shawford after all these years, standing in the Talbot in my flares. I just thought it was really. It's a really beautiful. I mean, I just wanted to acknowledge.
Thank you.
You know what a fantastic kind of, and as well as obviously very surreal in many areas, lyricist you are.
I remember more than I can tell from Winchester.
And I know that you've published, or there is a book of your lyrics that you've brought in.
There's a book of my lyrics aptly titled, it's Somewhere Apart, Lyrics 77 to 97. Yeah. And I've actually just finished a memoir of 1967 for which I'm looking for an agent. And because I've reached that magic age, you know, we're all going over the waterfall, I just kind of want to put it down whether it's published or not.
Yeah.
Which is my account of 67, which was, you know, in this weird elite sort of hothouse academic boarding school, while in southern England, while the psychedelic revolution raged all around us. Inevitably, a lot of it's about 66 because there's the pre-production, you know.
Yes.
And that's when I got to the college. But that was where, again, that set me up for becoming what I am today. You know, that's why I wound up in Nashville and why I do all these funny little gigs and stuff like, you know. But it's all because of that crucible. And I just also, it would probably explain quite a lot of why I am to be what I am, you know. And even if it's not published, it kind of exists now. So I'm breathing a bit of a sigh of relief.
I mean, you're a fantastic writer. I mean, I've read pieces you've written. There was a wonderful piece you wrote for the Quietus, I think, about the Soft Boys, and it was just.
And your piece on seeing Dylan at the Isle of Wight Festival at age 15 is really good.
Are those things that appear on Facebook?
No, that appeared.
Emma gets me to put
else.
stuff up.
I can't remember where that appeared, but it's a really flagging down the double E's, the Dylan newsletter website.
Oh, I thought,
which is very good.
Oh, I wonder
Ray
where they got
Padgett.
that. I didn't know I'd done that.
Yeah, it's really good.
You'll be sending an invoice.
I write. I've done so much writing about.
Yeah.
You know, the line between rock artist and rock journalist is very thin. Each side's always wanted to be the other, and there's great suspicion, you know. But generally speaking, rock writers are a bit smarter than rock musicians, and they wish they were a bit dumber so they could be, you know, the noble savage. But actually, but there are, you know, Chrissie Hynde was a rock writer, Bob Geldof was a rock writer, Neil Tennant famously.
Yeah. Well, I think American rock writers particularly embraced you because they felt some real kind of kinship with you. I mean, there's this great, so Bill Holdship at Cream and Jay Kordosh. So there's this wonderful Jay Kordosh piece.
He's gone.
Which is this kind of like a rock critic's love letter to I think Bill titled his piece "God Walks Among Us." That was the reverence in which you were held.
Yes, that didn't go to my head at all. Yes, yeah.
But they did absolutely. Something really resonated there, and I guess like Peter Buck and Mike Mills would probably have said the same thing, and then of course even Gillian Welch and David Rawlings, who you wouldn't naturally think would correspond, but you did an album with them in Nashville.
Hang on a second, Mr. Motorcycle's about to wreck everything.
Our favourite Harley Davidson motorcyclist.
Well, Gil and Dave actually lived down the road from us in Nashville, so the only person I would see walking around would be her. She's the only pedestrian, other pedestrian in East Nashville. Everyone else drives everywhere, but I would see this character wandering around, and it would be her. And it's been really nice being with neighbours. I'd go around for a hoot, or they'd drop in, and
what lovely people.
They are working on this. I think it's safe to say this. They're working on an exquisite record, which I hope they finish during their lifetimes or during the lifetime of the world. Mm-hmm. But every so often, we go around and they'll play a couple of more songs, and it's just so it's so absolutely beautiful. It's just these two acoustics with the voices, sometimes harmony, sometimes together. I don't know who writes which
It
bit,
doesn't
and
matter.
I don't know if they
We've all absolutely loved them for ages.
I saw. I think it was the first time I ever played in London was at a record company showcase at Soho House or something like that.
Yeah, you told me.
So I'm thinking,
about
and I had
that.
no idea who these people were, and I walked in. And I was staggered out.
Just
like 45 minutes later, absolutely stunned by what I'd heard. You know, I mean, occasionally I find them too brutally dark in that sort of Appalachian sort of way. You know, I find that sometimes quite hard, but I think they're sensational.
Have they written a song about the opioid crisis yet?
I don't know. There's
a
song called My Morphine from
of course, My Morphine on the second album.
I mean, that songs aren't. I mean, they're about things, but they also could be about anything. They're also Dylan students. You know, when we got together, we actually just spent 3 hours talking about Dylan, and then went and recorded a bunch of covers on a cassette machine or something. You know, somewhere there's us doing about half the Basement tapes. But
they did a fantastic version of Radiohead's Black Star.
Black Star.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful.
What's that on, Matt?
It was just I think it was just a live recording from the.
They've done
song.
Pixies songs and.
Yeah.
First time I saw them live, they did a version of Manic Depression. And that was quite something. I think that was at the Shepherd's Bush Empire.
Right.
But I realised about halfway through the show that they were actually 80s indie kids in Appalachian drag.
Of course.
And then it turned out that they knew my stuff and that they'd come to my shows, and apparently I'd even signed Dave's guitar at one point. And it all kind of, oh God, it's you know. But that is their I don't know, they just produce this stuff that is so exquisitely wrought, and if it takes them another 5 years to finish it, then you know, I know they're getting it on tape.
Good.
But their studio was damaged by the tornado. East Nashville, we were hit by a tornado just before the pandemic.
Wow.
About 2 weeks beforehand.
Oh my God.
Just to make it even worse.
Yeah.
So I was wandering around the sort of the wreckage of our house was missed by 200 yards.
Wow.
Our cat Rhodey was sitting in the closet with Ringo and Tubby, our cats. I got this text. Grant Lee Phillips texted me, and I was in San Francisco, and he said, tornado heading for Nashville. And I said, well, I'm in San Francisco, but whoops, you know, Ringo, Tubby and Gene. Anyway, they were okay. Everyone was okay. Gil and Dave were okay, but their studio incurred a lot of damage. So Dave spent about 18 months fixing it.
Right.
Now they're back and running. I think it's safe to say.
Blame it on the black star. Blame it on the falling sky.
I'd like just to talk briefly about the late great Mick Farren, who died 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And whose stuff has been on Rock's back pages.
As he was saying earlier,
for many years.
Musician turned writer turned musician. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so we thought we would just mark that anniversary. I'm sitting here with his autobiography, Give the Anarchist a Cigarette, in front of me, and also his collection that came out in the year of his death, Elvis Died for Somebody's Sins But Not Mine, which is collects lots of his great pieces.
Right.
So we're featuring 3 pieces by Mick to kind of make clear what he was about, which was an anarchist with a cigarette. He was a rabble-rouser. He was a Ladbroke Grove revolutionary, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Who ended up writing for the NME, but started obviously on IT, International Times.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my key rock and roll experiences at the age of 13 was going to see Soft Machine in Hyde Park and the Deviants with the support band.
Oh, really?
Right.
And
what was that like?
It was stunning. Well, you know,
hairy.
I was 13, and they were great. You know, they were. It was really rock and roll. You know, fantastic. But I've been reading. My brother had been buying International Times since '67, I guess, and so I'd seen his byline a lot. And then I was a melody maker, went away after I got busted for some weed, got sent to boarding school, came back in 73 and started reading the NME for the first time, and there was his byline in the NME. It's like, that's what's happened to him. He's terrific. The biography is really, really worth reading. The autobiography.
Yeah. I mean, he's a wonderful writer. I mean, I just read. So the first piece is from June 67. Pop in the Police State from International Times. I'll just read the first paragraph just to give a flavour. There was a time long ago when pop stars were nice, albeit thick, young men who were safely kept in check by their managers. The worst things they were ever accused of were a certain preoccupation with death / movements of their hips and possible homosexual relations with the aforesaid managers. But there followed the less acceptable brigade, the long-haired ones, the ex-art students, the university dropouts, the beatniks trying to make it rich. It suddenly became a crime to go dancing to pop groups, the penalty being searched in this. He talks a lot about the fuzz, the cops, and these are his top tips about not getting busted. A, turn on before you go. You can't get busted in a club if you're not holding. Only don't get too stoned to notice a plant. B, make smoke-ins work. The cops are unable to bust 2,000 people. Make sure, however, that the joints are not at the extreme edge of the crowd. This is brilliant. C, hide your address book as well as your stash. D, be creative in concealing narcotics, only don't get too proud of your ingenuity and tell everyone. E, if a cop touches you, remove your clothes to facilitate a search. F, get high by other means. And G, finally, spray aniseed on police dogs. So those are mixed tips.
Preload.
Mick's role was as a sort of resident hard nut of the hippie generation. People like Joe Boyd talk about seeing him as a doorman at UFO, and he was a burly bloke.
He wasn't middle class.
He wasn't,
and so he had a real kind of bee in his bonnet about middle class revolution.
Yeah. But he was kind of like he was the International Times editorial minder.
Right.
Was he the singer in the Deviants?
He was.
Yes.
So he was the front man.
Singer properly in quote marks.
I later saw him actually. Pink Fairies played under the Westway once, and he came and joined them. The Pink Fairies were basically the Deviants, sort of renamed.
Yeah.
And he came up and they did a sort of Deviants.
Spot.
Yeah, they did a sort of Deviants retro spot.
And he wrote the great Titanic piece.
Well, the third of his pieces,
which I kind of always remember as being written by Nick Kent, but
it was indeed. Just revisiting Mick's story, I was surprised to find he only started writing for the NME in 1974, and I sort of think surely it was before that. But anyway, so 2 years after starting to write for the NME, he writes this epic piece, very influential piece, the Titanic Sails at Dawn, which basically sort of says, we're heading for this iceberg unless rock and roll kind of reinvents itself and it stops being. I mean, it's like now it's about it's sort of safe and it's embraced by royalty and it's bland
I thought it was more influential than it actually really was. When you look at the date of it, punk bands were already getting together. Already happening.
And he doesn't reference those. It's June 76 and he doesn't actually mention the Pistols, probably just because he's too old to really be tuned into that. Do you remember that? Would you have read that piece, do you think?
No, I'm surprised I didn't, because I was quite an NME student at that point. I mean, there were certain, particularly the Nick Kent, Syd Barrett piece, I think I actually set that to music at one point.
Yeah, well, I remember that too.
And there was a lot, and that was very well written. And I remember Mick Farren's review of Desire, which would have been in early 76, and he didn't like it. And then a few people wrote in, storm of protest. And he just said, sorry, I love the damn thing now. Like he just flipped over. So it was like, okay, I did do this 2-page review, but now,
Yeah.
But I never saw him, but I do remember, that whole thing of the Deviants seemed like it was something exciting that I never quite saw. And then he appeared... I think he was playing things like Dingwalls and stuff.
Yeah, well, he died on... Where did he die on stage? Was it Dingwalls?
Was it Dingwalls or was it the Borderline?
Maybe Borderline, yes. I think you're right.
Really?
He actually died on stage.
He literally died on stage.
Heart attack on...
Was he performing?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was.
Was that like a Deviants revival?
No, I don't know. I don't know what he was playing at that
exactly
point.
what it was, whether it was the Deviants or whether
We
it was
went to the book launch for that, and he did a little set with Reckless Eric and Larry Wallace, I think.
Yeah.
Larry Wallace.
Yeah, we met him in LA, and when we were actually sort of recruiting people.
Yes.
So I met Mick
pages.
a couple of times in LA, and so the fourth of the pieces that are going to appear in the featured rise panel is a really nice piece that our friend Paul Gorman, author of Totally Wired, wrote about himself going to West Hollywood and interviewing Mick for what was then in their own right, so about International Times and about the NME. And it's just a really nice tribute. And Mick told him the big battle at the NME was, did we put out a kind of high school magazine about everything which might be interesting to a bunch of people pulled together by their liking for music, or did we just put out a music magazine? And I think one of Mick's briefs that he set himself was to try and get non-music related stuff into the paper, and that was an important part of NME.
It changed the NME, and the NME certainly for a great stretch from there till I'd say the end of the 80s. Carried on in exactly that way.
I think it did.
You had politics.
I discovered Philip K. Dick through Charlie Murray writing about Philip K. Dick, and I became obsessed with. Thanks to Charlie, became obsessed with Philip K. Dick.
Yeah. Didn't Mick Farren invent Charles Shaw Murray?
That's quite a good case for that. Yeah.
They could almost have been sort of brothers, couldn't
I
they?
feel like he was definitely there before.
He was.
Oh yes,
no,
absolutely. I mean, Charlie Murray's first written piece was for School Kids Oz, where he wrote about making love to Led Zeppelin. I believe was the actual piece.
Not something you'd ever have written, Robyn.
To or in the presence of, I guess. That's a big one.
Yours have been more making out to Piper at the Gates of Dawn.
TMO, totally making out. No, I never mixed music and the erotic because they just went they just went in different directions. I can't.
All the better for
I just probably focus on one thing at a time. but I mean, the thing with Mick Farren is that he, and I suppose Charles Shaw Murray as well, but Mick Farren particularly because he was there in '67, was that he was like deep hippie and then deep punk.
Yeah,
and so it was really interesting for people of my era to see how much of the hippie London underground reappeared in NME 10 years later.
Sure.
And like you said, the thing of having interviews with articles that weren't just about music. There was a big interview with Michael Heseltine.
Yeah.
And like 82 or 83.
Pat Nevin.
When he was like, he was almost an antichrist.
Yeah.
Someone decided they should actually see what he thought. Yeah. And I thought that was really good, because the underground started with this great sense of potential, and then inevitably, the momentum dissipated.
Yes.
And Mick wrote a lot about that. Precisely that.
But as you say, in a sense, he and people like he and Charlie Murray reintroduced International Times into the NME.
Yeah,
in many ways. In terms of its broad breadth of interest.
Was Nick Kent from that lot?
His friends. He wrote for Friends.
Oh, yes.
Okay, right.
Yes. Is that in a box somewhere in Nashville?
No, I haven't. I never got any friends.
You never got friends?
I've got the magazine. I've got Barry Miles's These We Have Loved, old, like all the magazine covers from there, the ones I got and the ones I missed. And it's all... it's just when you start seeing your life in a museum, have you lived too long or is life just moving too fast?
Very good, very good. Well, so that's Mick Farren, and we miss him. And at this point, Mark is going to mention a few of the pieces that he has added.
Yes, mostly recent, but in fact, one of the first pieces I want to talk about actually went in 2 or 3 weeks ago. Richard Harrington writing about the slam dancing hardcore scene in Washington, D.C. And it's really interesting because he's actually at a sort of ground zero of certain things. He says it's a kind of dance, it's just letting go, just going off, says Henry Garfield. It's high energy and you're out there flailing away, smashing into stuff. You're not hurting anybody, you're just out to get it out and move. Be out there with your friends and hear that loud music. You're out there to do it. and sometimes have it done unto you. Garfield, 20, was until recently the lead singer of SOA, State of Alert, one of the area's main musclehead bands. Last week became the new vocalist for Black Flag, the notorious hardcore punk band from Los Angeles, where the movement originated. Garfield, whose taut body is covered with scratches, bruises and lumps, says, I don't consider this dangerous. If it was, I wouldn't care anyhow. I don't think about it. A lot of the stuff I do, I don't remember because I get so carried away with the music. I've got scars all over my face. Most of them are given me by my friends. So what? That's Henry Rollins, who's just joined Black Flag. So this is a real sort of like... And they also talked to Minor Threat, who are... and he mentions one of Minor Threat's songs called Straight Edge, which became a name for that movement.
Oh.
And it's specifically Washington, D.C. And he talks in the article about how the LA bands, there's a lot of drugs, Derby, Crash the Germs, and so on and so forth. But the DC bands were much straighter. There was
Ian MacKaye, who was the front man of Minor Threat, was the sort of leader of that, and brought in this idea of not doing
taking drugs,
and leading this quite sort of puritanical
life. Yes.
So this piece is absolute gold dust. Brilliant. You know that he just happens to. And it's very sympathetic. I mean, Harrington's the main music writer for the Washington Post, one of the main music writers for the Washington Post. But he's very, very sympathetic to this scene, even though it's obviously not musically what he particularly likes. You know, it's terrific. It's an absolutely fantastic piece of writing. Going back to a week ago, our recent acquisition, Tom Vickers, interviewing Marvin Gaye.
The wonderful Tom Vickers.
We had him in a podcast some way back. Phonograph record 1977, interviewing Marvin Gaye. And Marvin Gaye says, man is pretty weak to bow to some of the demands of the more radical women today. I'm not chauvinistic, to tell the truth. It may hurt to recognise it, but I'm the king and I love you, and you're the queen. The queen cannot be king. The queen must be the queen, and the king the king. I probably just lost a couple of million record sales.
That's fantastic. Well, I mean, just to mention, Tom Vickers, wonderful addition to the Rocks Back Pages family. Wrote so many incredible pieces, did interviews with everyone from Marvin to Teddy.
What was his job? He was the Minister of Information for Parliament Funkadelic.
Yeah, this guy was brought into the press, and George Clinton basically gave him this fabulous title. It was like on his business cards. The Minister of Information for P-Funk, and he's such a delightful man. I mean, he is. You can understand why George gave him this job.
I just mentioned that we've got Joe McKeown's review of Eddie Hinton's Very Extremely Dangerous from Village Voice in 3rd of July 1978.
One of my favourite albums.
Which is probably the only mention that record ever got anywhere.
Well, I wonder where else it might have been.
Do you know that record, Robyn?
No, who's that by?
Eddie Hinton. He was a kind of
white soul guy.
He kind of wrote with Donnie Fritz and was part of the Muscle Shoals setup.
Yeah.
But just unlucky, really. I mean,
also acid damage.
Totally
acid damage.
Yeah, another one of those.
But I mean,
that record is a kind of extraordinary thing
of like white guys with like quote unquote black voices. I mean, I had that album for a period, and I didn't know because there was a black guy on the cover.
Oh,
I just assumed you never saw pictures of it.
That story about Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. Like Nils Lofgren brings it in and puts it on, and no one can believe that he's white.
He sounds so much like Bobby Womack at times.
Very
Bobby
Womack. A little bit
friends.
With Otis and a little bit with Joe Tex.
I hear Bobby.
Womack was like Anyway, but my experience was interviewing Dan Penn in Nashville. And asking him whether Eddie was still around, and the conversation sort of meandered on. And I obviously said something which betrayed the fact that I thought that Eddie was black. And Linda, Dan's wife, went, "Wow, Eddie is white. Did you not know that?" and Mia, who's taking the photographs, we just looked at each other. Sorry, are we talking about the same Eddie Hinton? Yeah, amazing.
Great guitar player too.
Incredible guitar
Great-
player.
great
Plays guitar on Elvis Presley's "Merry Christmas, Baby."
Is he still alive?
No.
No, he ended up with a fairly sort of serious alcohol
Yeah.
problem. But
People
He
try.
would, have probably,
did interview
he would have probably voted for Donald Trump too.
oh, God, I hope not. No, let's not have that conversation.
Anyway, moving
Yes,
on
moving
to
swiftly
a
on.
couple of years later, another of these Washington, thanks to Richard Harrington, who wrote the piece about hardcore, we got hold of Joe Sasfy as well, who like Richard, wrote for Unicorn Times, which was an underground paper in DC in the 70s. And this is him interviewed with. It's a marvellous piece on the Cramps. It's really, really fabulous. Ivy Rorschach says, "I didn't want to play it, Brian didn't want to play it, and Lux didn't want to play anything, so no bass." And then talking about Brian, he says, "He looked like a definite mistake in the human race. Brian used to work on an assembly line. He fell in one day and no one noticed for 3 hours. He came out a car."
Did you know this piece is so Joe Sasfy is actually in Memphis when they're recording with Alex Chilton?
That's right. He's in the studio.
Which is amazing. So there's like kind of reportage on Alex trying to produce
and it's obviously chaotic.
songs.
That's right. He's saying nothing. Apparently, Alex just sits there, sort of silent.
Yeah, that would be Alex.
This week, Twinkle, who of course is the sister of one of
Twinkle,
sister of one of our writers, Dawn James.
Yes.
Interviewed by Maureen Cleave in Evening Standard in 1964. Twinkle's real name is Lynn Ripley. She loathes this name and says she has been Twinkle almost from birth. Her father is Sidney William Leonard Ripley, chairman of this and that, Twinkle says vaguely. One of her godfathers is John Boyd Carpenter, and one of her heroes is Sir Alec Douglas Hume. "I don't worship him politically," she said, "but because he's so with it." I feel
Did you not know that Sir Alec Douglas Hume was with it until this moment? I don't think you would have known that, Robyn.
I didn't even know it was with Sir Alec Douglas Hume.
And she says, and I feel really sorry for my parents, the poor things. It's pathetic how they've had to change in the last 2 years. They've had to become fantastically with it, especially Mummy. Now they're just mad about pop music, and they can't stand the sort of stuff they play at the Savoy Hotel.
Fantastic.
So
So
it's just
cultural.
priceless.
I mean, this is this is
was-
not just music journalism.
No.
This is
Cross-cultural
This
studies.
is really good. We've also got a great interview. It's a kind of discography / interview with Miles Davis and Gene Santoro of Pulse magazine in 1988. Oh, Laurie Anderson to Mick Sinclair, Sounds 1982. "I don't hold with the usual art thing of being anti-entertainment, that entertainment is a cover for banality. I take the view that seriousness is a cover for banality," which is actually quite a good point.
Laurie was great.
And briefly, lastly, Chet Atkins, again written by Richard Harrington for Washington Post in 1980, about the state of country music in 1980, says, "I'm to blame for a lot of that myself. Country music moved uptown, and it doesn't exist much anymore in the old form, and I don't know if it ever will." You know, he's basically holding his hands up and saying Countrypolitan was my...
Well, he was a very...
Yeah, but, things always come back again. And then,
But
then you get...
I suppose
Gil
it's
and
a
Dave.
good point. Once it was really marketed things, it meant all the things like the Louvin brothers or Hank Williams and stuff.
vanished.
Because that
Sidelined.
Yeah, I mean, it just became poppy. Yeah,
I mean, I love some. I mean, we're all Patsy Cline fans.
Cool.
I guess around this table, and that's pure Countrypolitan in many respects.
Did you miss an opportunity to make a Countrypolitan record while you were in Nashville?
I haven't necessarily missed it, actually. I dare say that still could happen quite easily. I know exactly the people I would use.
Yeah.
I just have to have a big enough collection of original songs of mine that would
suit
masquerade as a country album.
And get Argus Pig Robbins to play piano.
And you'd also have to have...
Argus Pig Robbins was blind.
Yes. Hence Pig, blind as a pig.
Blind. Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what it
comes
is.
from.
I know. I met Charlie McCoy a couple of times.
Right.
I met Wayne Moss, who's Charlie McCoy's quite tough. He'll probably be the last to go, but I mean they're all over 80 now.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, I think Pig had already gone.
Yeah, because Bob Ray, who played bass with us, played bass on a load of George Jones records.
Yes.
And Pig was on those.
Really?
That's why I knew it.
In fact, Robert Altman...
So he
Robert
plays
Altman's,
on Pledging My Time.
Yes.
That fantastic
Robert
piano.
Altman's Nashville has a blind piano player as one of the lead
As a
kind of characters.
nods.
It's worth
to-
watching again, Nashville.
I haven't seen it the first time,
Oh,
but I'll
Jeff
watch it again
Goldblum's
first.
first screen performance, I think.
Does
is
it stand up, Nashville?
Probably
It's
not.
a bit
Altman is
hysterical. It's a bit hysterical because it ends with an spoiler alert, assassination
you don't have to watch
at
it now,
the
Robyn.
Okay.
of
There's
the
no point
Athenian
now.
Temple in Nashville. Is that still there?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
It's I didn't even know it existed, and I suddenly found myself in it. It was very weird. Why would there be this Athenian Greek temple? When you get to Nashville Airport, it says, "Welcome to Nashville, the Athens of the South." And I thought, well, there is Athens, Georgia.
There is an Athens. I know,
It's not the only Athens.
Really
is it?
confusing.
Because when we went there, it was closed for some reason.
Yes,
the day we went
Nashville.
to Nashville
Yeah, it
was
was.
closed. Except our piano player, Robbie's Western and Afro-Caribbean, and his mum's pure Jamaican. He went into Twitty City, the record store, and came out with armfuls of Jim Reeves albums
records.
for his mum. Because reggae country is huge in Jamaica.
Is it?
It's really big.
Powerful
Reeves in
transistors.
particular.
Yeah.
The Caribbean could pick up the Nashville stations.
Yeah, that's right. They could hear. They could get it on the radio. So
I didn't know.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, Jim Reeves was revered in Jamaica.
It doesn't never made any sense to me, but you kind of love what you can get, I suppose. If that's all I can hear,
Yeah, Floyd
On that
Kramer's
rather
piano.
arcane footnote, we should probably wind up what's been a really, really enjoyable
great
episode.
fun.
Thank you so much for joining us, Robyn.
Yeah.
Do you have any
absolutely.
parting
Pleasure.
words you'd like to offer our listeners?
Well, I haven't gone yet, but yeah. Listeners, you're here with both ears, and I love both of them equally. I have no favourites. Love on you, darlings, and thanks for having me, everybody.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been brilliant.
Oh, wonderful. So go out and buy all of Robyn's many, many albums. You contain multitudes of albums. And the Soft Boys, Underwater Moonlight is a particular favourite of mine.
When we get that remastered,
Yes.
there'll be nothing to stop us.
Don't wait till that comes out.
Next stop, the moon.
I really hope, along with the next Gillian and David record, I think Underwater Moonlight, boy, it's going to be wonderful.
and just a last brief plug for your lyrics book.
Oh, yeah. It's on our Tiny Ghost publishing house, which means it's not in any shops at all. That's the kind of marketing strategy we have. But you can order it from Tiny Ghost, and there's been a bit of a meltdown, but it's back in. We have some in stock in Britain and in the United States.
And what's it called again, Robyn?
It's called Somewhere Apart.
Somewhere Apart.
It's a lovingly recreated. It's trying to look like a 1961 Faber poetry book, like Ted Hughes of Sylvia
Well, Faber
Plath,
are doing these sort of lyrics books, aren't they? They've done like Neil Tennant,
didn't get this
Alex
one, though.
Turner of Arctic Monkeys, Jarvis Cocker. You should have been in that series, but you've outwitted them.
I would
their
just
own game.
outwit them by publishing it directly
Yes,
ourselves.
You'll make more money that way.
Yeah, fewer outlets, but a greater percentage of the profits when there are some. Yeah. Oh boy.
That last clause in brackets. Yes. No, well, good luck with that.
Thanks, Barney.
And
Thanks
we
for having
will
me.
be back actually in a week with Richard Boone, former manager of Buzzcocks.
Yeah.
And
Doyen of the Manchester United.
A lovely
Manchester United, the Manchester team.
You don't know who he supports. But he's lived in Stoke Newington for about 40 years now. So
He
he's
is,
hard.
yes.
He really even doesn't count as Mancunian.
But we look forward to
But
it
he's
very
a
much.
wonderful man. So
Yeah.
anyway, let's all just say toodle pip and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
That concludes episode 155 of the Rock's Back Pages podcast. Many thanks to special guest Robyn Hitchcock. Somewhere Apart, Selected Lyrics 1977 to 1997 is published by Tiny Ghost and available now. The hosts were Bonnie Hoskins, Mark Pringle and Martin Collier, and the producer was Jasper Murison Bowie. The Rock's Back Pages podcast is part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. You can find thousands of articles, as well as hundreds of full-length audio interviews at rocksbackpages.com.
And you can tell your friend there with you, he'll have to